Mr. President, you mentioned a couple of times that you're a treaty ally of the United States. So are we Australians. There are 5 of us in Asia. Sometimes the Americans can be tricky to deal with.
I don't think you'll get any contradiction from the Philippines on that.
But they're good people, and they've been reliable security partners. So tell me, in a nutshell, how's it going with Uncle Sam? Because it wasn't going so well under President Duterte.
Well, in a sense, despite the fact that my predecessor, President Duterte, had a very different treatment of the relationship between the U.S. and the Philippines, the basic premise of the strong relationship that has been developed between the U.S. and the Philippines over more than 100 years, beyond the time that we had a formal diplomatic relationship, is recognized as being as strong as it has ever been, and that it is necessary, especially with the events of the past few weeks and months, maybe, where what has happened is that many times I had felt that in the past years, there was a feeling that we had come to a kind of modus vivendi in our region. And that we have found a way to live with each other in peace and found a way to calm the waters whenever things go awry a little bit. But again, the events in the last few months really have pointed out that those problems had not really gone away. They were just bubbling under the surface, and they now have come above the surface, and we have to face those challenges, and we have to deal with them. So the United States, the partnership between the United States and the Philippines is going to be certainly a very, very important part of being able to manage those problems that we have been facing. I think it's no surprise to anyone that the Philippines has some of these conflicts with the People's Republic of China. And the position that the Philippines takes is that we have no territorial conflict with China. What we have are China claiming territory that belongs to the Philippines. So this is the position we take, and with our American partners, we have promoted that position. We have also made it very clear to our friends in Beijing that this is the way we feel about it. And as a consequence of this challenge that we have, this territorial challenge that we have, I'd like to point out that this is the first national election in the Philippines where foreign policy was an issue with the people. Generally speaking, in our experience, the foreign policy, the ordinary citizen, the ordinary voter, would say, well, foreign policy is not really our concern. Let the experts in government decide that. But when it happens that our fishermen are not allowed to continue with their livelihood, to fish in areas where they have fished for the last 30, 40 generations, then it becomes an issue right at the gut of our people. And that is where we find ourselves now.
I listened carefully to what you said in your remarks about the West Philippine Sea. And your recent stated position of the government in terms of the Permanent Court of Arbitration decision in 2016. So, given China's posture, which is in recent times usually not through grey-coloured vessels, that's warships, but through ships of other colours, sometimes Coast Guard vessels, and sometimes fishing fleets, and sometimes fishing fleets comprised of hundreds of vessels very close together. Looking ahead for the next couple of years, what would you ask our Chinese friends to do differently?
Well, what we have tried, I mean, in my view, it is it is, nobody wants to go to war. The one thing we need to avoid is a shooting war. And I have always said that the fundamental principle that guides our foreign policy is peace. We talk about the economy. We say that we are in crisis. There are many things that we need to do. We have good plans for it. We have we are very optimistic about the future. But all of these things will be for naught if there is conflict in the region. Australia is certainly a strong partner in all of these actuations that we have been trying to endorse. In the case of the Philippines, it's clear that militarily there is no comparison between the Philippines and China in terms of capability, in terms of strength, military strength, should it come to that. However, we believe that the strength that we can apply will be from the partnerships, once again, that we have with countries like Australia, with our ASEAN members, with the rest of our friends and allies in the region. And that's why I think that ASEAN is going to have to play a stronger role in all of these discussions, and in trying to, again, keep the peace and slowly, but continue to engage China. Because once that engagement stops, then there is no progress. And then things could very easily deteriorate, and that is not what we want to happen. So we have tried, on a bilateral basis with China, although we maintain our position in terms of our maritime territories and their fishing rights, our economic zones, we have nonetheless tried to continue to engage China on that basis, on those subjects, but also engage China on other aspects, the people-to-people relationships, even the economic relationships that we have fostered with China, even some of the other exchanges that we have had in terms of education, in terms of cultural exchanges, in terms of all of the other things. I have always told my Chinese friends, and I said, let us not make our differences concerning maritime, like the baselines, the economic zones, etc. Let us not make that the defining element of our relationship. Because if that is the only defining if that will be the defining relationship of the defining part of our relationship, then we are really at a standstill. And hopefully, if we make progress in other areas, this will help. I always quote that the way that the United States, for example, and China came together was through ping pong. If you remember, it was because the Chinese ping pong captain played with the United States ping pong captain, and they became friends, and ping pong went to the United States. And this led to Richard Nixon going to China and establishing diplomatic relations. So perhaps that's something. So we must explore everything. We must explore every avenue. We do it G to government to government.
Basketball? Could we do the basketball?
Basketball could be could be another. But in any single way, we never know. You never know where the progress will come. So you have to try everything. You cannot discount anything and limit yourself to just the traditional ways of negotiating, the traditional ways of dealing with this kind of problem. We have to be, to an extent, I would say that we have been successful, and that we have slowly begun to redefine, or rather, no, not redefine, but to add to that relationship in other aspects of diplomatic life, of political life within the region. And I think that has happened because of again, the strong partnerships that we have with the other countries, our allies around the region. And that way, that united front that we can present, I think is a very, very important aspect of that engagement.